The man was lying still beneath the glow of a streetlight. It was just after 3:30 a.m. and the air in Panthersville, Georgia hung heavy with fog and silence, except for the wail of sirens fast approaching. When officers arrived at the intersection of Deep Shoals Circle and Corners Crossing, they found 34-year-old Frederick Rooks slumped on the pavement. 10 shell casings littered the street around him. The person that did this had already vanished, but nearby security footage revealed a white BMW SUV speeding away from the scene just moments earlier. Police didn't know it yet, but the driver of that car was one of the most recognizable faces of the internet's viral era.
Now watch me whip, 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 whip.
By the way, this is Dark Case and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases as well as other things you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, then join the Dark Case family now by hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question. Kind of morbid, but what one song would you like to be played at your funeral? Let me know down in the comments. All of your support over on Patreon and via channel memberships here on YouTube is so appreciated, and I really can't thank you all enough. However, as you know, I'm still going to say thank you. But now, on with the video. In early 2015, a teenager from Stone Mountain, Georgia, uploaded a song to SoundCloud. He called himself Silentó. The track was simple, pretty much just a chant layered over a bouncy beat, where he said, "Watch me whip, now watch me nae nae." Bet you never thought you'd hear me say that. It wasn't particularly lyrical or polished, but it was fun, and you can't deny that. The track caught fire within days, and teenagers across the US began mimicking Silentó's dance moves online, and soon it was everywhere: YouTube, Vine, Instagram. And what made Watch Me Whip Nae Nae different was its accessibility. There were no curse words, and the choreography was easy enough for kids and parents alike. Dance networks partnered with music distributors to boost the song's reach. Within weeks, thousands of user-generated dance videos swarmed the internet. By the summer, the track had exploded into a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Silentó's breakout had peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it then spent an amazing 53 weeks on the chart. Former First Lady Michelle Obama even danced to the song at the White House Easter egg roll. It was played at birthday parties, proms, NBA games. Everyone from toddlers to talk show hosts was doing the whip and nae nae. For Silentó, it felt like a dream realized. Kind of hilariously, he just lost a high school talent show months earlier. Now he was headlining music festivals and late night shows. But behind that rising star was a teenager quietly unraveling, someone who already believed he wasn't built for happiness. Born Richard Lamar Hawk, Silentó came into the world on January the 23rd, 1998. He later claimed that he was born with a multitude of illicit substances in his system, and that from a young age, he watched family members attempt to hurt each other and themselves. By the time he was just 14, Ricky was now living with his great aunt, and not long after that, he ended up in juvenile detention. Music, though, was always there for him, and it was his escape. He started performing in a group in 8th grade. By high school, he was writing and producing solo songs, and after the viral success of Watch Me, the industry came calling. He signed a major record deal with Capitol Records in mid-2015, and that contract promised 4 albums. But turning that viral energy into a sustainable music career proved much harder than it looked. Despite a string of public appearances on huge shows like Good Morning America and Dick Clark's New Year's Eve, his follow-up tracks struggled to chart. His debut album, Fresh Outta High School, finally dropped in 2018, but it was 3 years too late. The buzz had already faded out. The label stopped calling him. The spotlight around him dimmed, and Ricky's internal struggles intensified. In a 2019 appearance on The Doctors, he spoke candidly about his mental health. "I've been fighting demons my whole life. Depression doesn't leave you when you become famous. It just adds more pressure." That same year, his publicist set up therapy sessions and more TV appearances. However, Ricky missed nearly all of them. He was already slipping, and by 2020, that slip had turned into a total freefall. By mid-2020, Silentó's name was making headlines once again, but this time it wasn't for music. On August the 28th, he was arrested in Santa Ana, California. This was for a DV incident involving a romantic partner. He was then released, and then arrested again the very next day. The second arrest was even more disturbing. According to the police, Ricky entered a random home in Valley Village. In his hand, he was holding a hatchet. Witnesses said he was frantically searching for his girlfriend and that he swung the weapon at two strangers inside. A friend arrived moments later and they told him that he had the wrong house. The family, thankfully, managed to disarm him. Police then took him into custody and charged him with 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. It was clear that something was wrong.
The rapper Silentó has been arrested twice in the past week here in Southern California. That's video from Silentó's hit song Watch Me back in 2015. Police say he was arrested in Santa Ana last Friday for allegedly attacking his girlfriend. And then on Saturday, he was arrested in LA in Valley Village area. Police say he entered a home looking for his girlfriend and carrying a hatchet. And according to a detective, the people who were in that home, which included children, did not know Silentó or his girlfriend. The rapper left and people picked him up, police picked him up about a block away. Silentó is now facing 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, along with domestic violence charges from his arrest in Santa Ana.
Just weeks later in October, he was arrested once again, this time back in Georgia. He had been clocked driving 143 miles per hour on Interstate 85. When pulled over, he told officers, "I'm not a regular person, they're following me." He was released that same day. Behind the scenes, those close to Silentó were growing increasingly concerned. His publicist, Chanel Hudson, described him as suffering immensely from a series of mental health illnesses. She even said that he had made an attempt on himself in that same year. As well as this, his behaviour was becoming more erratic by the week. There were no new songs, there was no planned comeback, just a young man spiralling in plain sight, and nobody could have predicted what would happen next. January the 20th, 2021, the day that things went from bad to totally horrifying in this story. Silentó showed up to a friend's house to pick up his cousin, a man named Frederick Rooks. According to family, Ricky and Frederick had been close growing up. As far as we know, there was no arguments between them and no bad blood. Nothing that would suggest what was about to happen. It was just past 2:30 a.m. when Frederick Rooks stepped into the white BMW SUV. The streets of Panthersville were quiet. There was very little traffic and very few witnesses. There were just 2 cousins, Frederick and Ricky, and they drove off into the dark residential sprawl of DeKalb County. There had been no signs of trouble. Friends said that they'd been together earlier that night. They said there was no shouting between the two, and generally nothing out of the ordinary. So Frederick had no reason to be afraid. After all, this was family. But what happened next would leave his loved ones and the rest of the world searching for answers that may never fully come. At 3:37 a.m., a burst of gunfire shattered the stillness. Multiple rounds rang out near Deep Shoals Circle. A neighbour, awakened by the noise, called 911. By the time officers arrived, the perpetrator was gone. The scene, however, was unmistakable. Frederick was lying in the street, now motionless. Someone had pulled the trigger whilst aimed at him multiple times, some to his leg, others to his face. 10 shell casings glinted under the streetlight. No witnesses had seen it happen. Nobody had heard a confrontation, but just up the block, a private home security camera had been rolling, and that footage captured a white SUV fleeing the scene at high speed, just seconds after those shots rang out. As first responders covered Frederick's body and marked off the casings, detectives already had their lead. A flock license plate reader had caught a white BMW entering that neighborhood earlier that night, and it matched the vehicle seen on the neighbor's CCTV footage. And this also matched the car that Ricky Hawk, Silentó, had been seen driving that same evening. For investigators, the pieces began falling into place fast. They pulled surveillance footage from multiple intersections, and each camera confirmed the same vehicle entering, circling, and then leaving the area with the exact time frame of the attack. And indeed, it placed Silentó at the scene within just moments of the first 911 call. The evidence wasn't just circumstantial, it was precise. 10 days later, on February the 1st, 2021, officers tracked down Ricky Hawk's location, and then they placed him under arrest once again. He didn't resist, nor did he demand a lawyer. In the interview room, face to face with detectives, Silentó actually admitted what he'd done. He said he had shot his cousin. However, he didn't offer a reason. He didn't try to justify it. It was just a flat confession. When police searched him, they found a firearm. Ballistics testing later confirmed that this was the weapon used to end Frederick. The bullet casings from the streets also matched perfectly. But still, no one could say why any of this had happened. What had happened inside that car? What had shifted in Ricky's mind between the pickup and the blasts? How did a casual ride between cousins become an execution in the middle of the night? Ricky never gave a motive. Some speculate it was simply a psychotic break. Others suspected substances or paranoia, but none of this could be proven. And regardless of the reason, none of it could undo what had already been done. A man who once brought joy to millions, through dance, through music, through viral magic, had turned a weapon on his own family. He had taken a life, and that reality was inescapable, even for him. Prosecutors charged Ricky with murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and concealing the death of another. He was held without bond at a DeKalb County jail. His grandparents reportedly asked the judge to deny him bail. The legal system moved slowly, but over the next 4 years, Ricky remained behind bars as the case slowly made its way through the courts. When it finally came to sentencing in 2025, people that were once his fans now watched on in disbelief. The teen who once ruled every school dance in America was now facing 3 decades in prison. On July the 11th, 2025, Ricky Hawk appeared before a judge in DeKalb County Superior Court. He entered a plea of guilty but mentally ill. This was part of a deal, one that would drop the original murder charge in exchange for guilty pleas to lesser offences. Those included voluntary manslaughter, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime, and concealing the death of another. Even with the deal, this wasn't a walkaway outcome. The sentence here was still severe, but this plea acknowledged something that had been obvious for years. Ricky really wasn't well. In fact, he had been publicly struggling with depression since at least 2019. He had admitted to hallucinations, to making attempts on himself, and persistent emotional instability. He'd grown up in chaos, and for most of his adult life, he had lived in various forms of chaos too. The courtroom was silent as a sentence was handed down. It was 30 years in prison. He would receive credit for the 4 years he had already served. Ricky did not contest it. He simply stood there, accepting the weight of the decision. His cousin's family, though, felt that this wasn't enough. Several of Frederick's siblings told the court that they had wanted a longer sentence. They wanted justice that matched the pain of what they had had taken away from them. However, this was as far as the law would go. The case had been handled by the Homicide and Gangs Unit of the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office. Senior ADA Helen Pott led the prosecution. She was supported by ADA Thomas Williams, investigator Curtis Averhart, and victim advocate Keisha Albritton, and Detective B.R. Smith, who was the one who had connected the dots. From the weapon to the car, from the footage to the confession, he'd built a case that was airtight. And now the legal process was over. And now the story is already fading from the headlines. Watch Me Whip Nae Nae has 1.9 billion views on YouTube, but its creator will never see another stage or red carpet, and this is likely to be his final viral moment. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.